Thank you, Pastor Jen. I'm glad Pastor Jen mentioned Mother's Day. You know, it's a tough day for folks. Sometimes it's hard if you've been struggling with infertility or couples, or maybe you don't have the greatest relationship with your mom. And I'm glad that Pastor Jen widened that to include just people who have been there for us in a capacity that we know as mothering. So thank you, Pastor Jen. The scripture reading today comes to us from the book of 1 Samuel, and it's select verses from chapters 1 and 2. Now, this is another one of those. Remember last week we talked about Samuel and the call of Samuel. Well, this is about Samuel's mom. There was a certain man whose name was Elkanah, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. Just as an aside, there goes the biblical view of marriage, right? He had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other, Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now, this man used to go up year by year from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, remember we learned about them last week, they were priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival, Peninnah, used to provoke her severely, to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on, year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Hannah wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" After they had eaten and drunk at Shiloh, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. Hannah was deeply distressed, and she prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made this vow: "O Lord of hosts, if you will only look on the misery of your servant and remember me and forget not your servant, but I will give to your servant a male child, and then I will set him before you as a Nazirite until the day of his death. He shall neither drink wine nor intoxicants, and no razor shall touch his head." As Hannah continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, "How long will you make a drunken spectacle of yourself? Put away your wine, woman." But Hannah answered, "No, my Lord. I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time." Then Eli answered, "Go in peace. The God of Israel grant the petition you have made to him." And she said, "Let your servant find favor in your sight." Then Hannah went to her quarters and ate and drank with her husband, and she was no longer sad. They rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. In due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I have asked him of the Lord." And when she had weaned him, she took him, along with her 3-year-old bull, some flour, and a skin of wine, and she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, and the child was very young. Then they slaughtered the bull, and they brought the child to old Eli. And she said, "O my Lord, as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who was standing here in your presence praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me the petition I made to God. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is given to the Lord." And she left him there to the Lord. May God bless and challenge us in the reading of this word. The past few weeks we've been talking about call. And we've done it because we've done it with this symbolism about raise your glass, which is this sermon series. And the genesis of this actually came from a reflection that Pastor Nevin did several weeks ago about how he was contemplating the fact that maybe we're all like a little pane of stained glass, and the way that the light reflects and light shines through us, all the different colors and shapes, but yet the light shines through all of us. It's been beautiful. And you know, this is one of those texts that it can be hard to see light. It's easy to relate to Hannah. Why? Because she's one of those people that has a label. We know those people. Hannah was labeled barren. Despite anything else she may have done in her life, in her society, barren meant she was worthless. Her glass pane was void of color and shape, no light filtered through. She was one without value. Hannah was married to Elkanah. For short, let's call him Kenny, because I can never get his name right. Kenny has 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah, which is also an odd name, so let's just call her Penny. Okay? You have Kenny and Penny and Hannah. Now, Penny, as it turned out, was a childbearing machine. She could pop kids out almost at will, it seemed. Some of them, you know, of course, were male, which only served to increase Penny's value. Most of us, thankfully, don't know what it's like to share a spouse. Don't raise your hand if you do. But Hannah and Penny were rivals. Penny continually provoked Hannah to, the text says, irritate her because her womb is closed. If you translate it directly from the Hebrew, it reads like this: she vexed her rival of her moreover vexation in order to dishearten her. Or, she provoked her until she was sore, until it hurt. Penny antagonized Hannah, intending to break her spirit, to make her lose hope. Cruel, isn't it? And I imagine it wouldn't have had to been a verbal poking either. It could have been just as easy as Penny walking past Hannah every morning in the kitchen with little ones in tow and a couple in her arms, shooting Hannah that look of, "Too bad you don't have any kids. Put the glass down, Hannah. There's no call for you. Don't even waste your energy. It's okay." Have you ever had a Penny in your life? Somebody who has provoked you sore. Somebody who has something that you want so desperately that even the thought, even the sight of them makes you feel less than. You try to take the high road, you swear you'll take the high road, but every time you see them, every time they poke, it's like another slap in the face, and it's fresh, and you find yourself on your knees again. Help me, God. I know you have a call for me. Please send light. Now, the text doesn't say why Penny was so cruel. It doesn't tell us. It does tell us, however, that her husband, Kenny, doted on who? Hannah. Hannah always got that extra portion of everything that Kenny brought home. What's with that? Weren't Penny and her brood of kids enough for him? Hadn't she done what she had supposed to do? Hadn't she let her body go, had her children? Yet that Hannah was the one who won all of her husband's affection. Hannah was the one getting special treatment. So maybe Penny played the only hand she had. Maybe this is the one place that Penny outshined Hannah. Maybe it makes her feel a little bit better about herself by flaunting what she did have in front of her rival. All bullying stems from insecurity, we know that. But I don't believe Penny was the only one making Hannah feel less than in this story. Her well-meaning husband, Kenny. Now, he seems like a nice enough guy, doesn't he? He pays special attention to Hannah. He gives her extra gifts because he loved her, the text reminds us, and I believe that. But if we look closely at his behavior, we can see how Kenny's well-meaning actions may have given Hannah mixed messages. While the hope was there, of course, that extra portion would build her up physically, emotionally, maybe even spiritually, I can imagine for Hannah, after year after year after year of hearing, "Here, darling Hannah, take the extra portion. You need this. Sorry you can't have children. Sorry that God closed your womb. Don't feel bad about it. You can't help that there's something wrong with you. Besides, you have me. Aren't I worth 10 sons? I love you, Hannah, honey." Anyone ever had a Kenny in your life? This is a tough one because the Kennys in our life, they want the best for us. Truly, they want the best for us. Kenny, we want to please Kenny. We love Kenny. But no matter how hard we try, we know that with Kenny, it's more that we're tolerated than accepted exactly as we are. And the more we try, and more Kenny tries to make it better for us, the more we feel like a disappointment. We can't live up to what Kenny wants from us because it's just not in us. We think, I know Kenny loves me, but why is it that when he's around, I always feel like I've just got kicked in the stomach? So for fun, let's flip that question around to, who have you been Kenny to in your life? It's a harder one. Who do you have hopes for, dreams for? Who do you have the best feelings for? You want them to succeed, but your attempts to make them feel better about them missing the mark, they get a message that they're just not acceptable as they are. The message is well-intended, and it's the message that we intend to send are not always the ones being received, are they? Despite our best intentions, we can unknowingly kick Hannah in the stomach. By the time she's old, Hannah's about had it. She's had it with being poked by Penny and kicked by Kenny, and she grabs her pane of glass and she goes to the temple, and weeping bitterly, she sinks down on the side of a pillar and she begins to pray, weeping bitterly. You know this prayer. At least I hope you do. When you're angry and you're frustrated and you're hurt and you can't take it anymore, and you've been stomped on and you've been made fun of and nothing goes right, you've been placated to death, and you have nowhere to turn but to the one who you believe called you to this crazy thing in the first place. Every emotion in your body is sensitive and surfacing. You're crying and you're rocking and you're praying and you're reaching the point where your lips are moving, but there ain't no sound coming out at all. Some pain too deep for words. Enter old Eli, the priest sitting in the wings, watching Hannah, and they think she's drunk. Lady, you're making a spectacle of yourself. Stop drinking, go home. Has there ever been an Eli in your life? One who's misinterpreted your actions, your intentions, even when they're at your most sincere? Who, because of how you pray or believe or worship or look or identify, challenges the path that you're on, questions your motives, questions your morality, questions your faith. And while we're here, let's flip that question around. Have you ever been an Eli? I know I have. Quick to judge instead of looking deeper. Or worse, seeking to exclude based on appearance or identity or behavior, habits. Over the years, the church has done a great Eli impersonation. Amen? Not just with individuals, but with whole people groups. What are you, drunk? You think we're going to allow that spectacle in here? Go home. Maybe Hannah thought about it. Maybe she thought about just going home and possibly drinking. But instead, she stays where she is. She stays at the base of that pillar, and she opens her eyes. And she sees that little glass pane in front of her. Maybe it's the first time in a while that she's actually looked at it. And maybe it's her tears blurring and mixing and coloring the pane. She blinks. She looks again. And you know what? She realizes maybe for the first time, it's not blank. It's not shapeless at all. She remembers. And what she sees is her beautiful pane of glass. It's beautiful because it's a call from God, for God. And so Hannah musters up her courage, and she stands up, and she tilts herself toward Eli, and she raises her glass toward the light of God. And Eli at last recognizes the truth, as we all do when we look at people and situations through the light of Christ. And he affirms Hannah for her call. He affirms all she is, and he blesses all she will become. And then with renewed faithfulness, yes, Hannah gets up and goes back to Kenny and Penny and that brood of horrible kids who are not hers, and in due time she has a son. But here's where the story takes an amazing twist. Hannah takes her son, nurses her son, cares for her son, weans her son, and then takes the fruit of her call, the thing that in everyone's eyes made her valuable, the thing that gave her worth in Penny's eyes, in society's eyes, in her eyes. The very thing that would allow her pride and standing in her own family, and she brings that thing back to the temple as an offering to God and leaves it there. This seems unthinkable to me. How do you leave your just weaned child, the baby that you prayed for and hoped for, your heart's desire, and just give it to the Lord? And if that isn't enough, she leaves her son with old Eli and walks back to her home, arms empty, heart full. And her prayer begins like this: I rejoice. God, she says, you have given me what I asked for. You have shown that you are God. I rejoice. You told me I was called to have a son, and I had one. I rejoice. Those who called me worthless see worthless no more. I rejoice. What? She's going back without her son. She had to be grieving this child she just pleaded for her whole life, yet she rejoiced. So here's where I'll ask my final question. Have you ever been Hannah? Have you ever been Hannah? Has your call ever meant giving back to God the exact thing you prayed for? Have you hoped and longed for something so long and so hard only to receive it and then leave it at the altar? You see, many times the things that we hope for and pray for and work for, when they finally arrive, we get the idea that somehow God has just given them to us, that they belong to us, when in reality, nothing belongs to us. Nothing. Everything we have, everything we have ever had, everything we hope to have belongs to God. We want to hold on to things. We want to claim them as our own. But those things that we are called to have, even to birth from our own being, belong to God. Because you and I belong to God. Our lives, our possessions, our gifts, our call, our very breath would not exist without God. So Hannah rejoiced. She learned something that many of us never do. She learned to trust God fully with her whole heart. She left the most valued part of herself with the one who gives all things value. She trusted her son with the God who sent God's son to us. She answered the call of God on her life, which was just to give the best of her life. And once the best was placed in the hands of God, she went away with raised glass in her hand, yes, rejoicing. I wonder, can we trust God enough to live out our call? We always say it. Each one of us has it. Each one of us has a call. Can we give the best part of ourselves to the one who gave us life? When we put the very thing that we think makes us who we are into God's hand and trust God to do the rest, we may think we're going to walk away with empty arms, but trust me, my friends, our hearts will be full, a raised glass in hands. We rejoice. God bless you this morning.